Thank you very much. I'd like to call a meeting of the Finance Committee to order. It is now 6:05. Thank you all for coming this evening. We should have a relatively quick meeting this evening. I didn't get a chance to print or send out the minutes. We'll get those at our next meeting. It should be pretty uneventful on our minutes for the next meeting. The next thing we have is two reserve fund transfers. So if we could get those out, we are going to have just a few last two budgets are left. Would be voc ed and streetlights. That's all we have left on that. And then Tom was going to be here with a report on the stormwater, and then he has three things going on: capital planning, policy committee, and stormwater. And Sean might be able to enlighten us as to what's moving forward. Sean Ferry is on that the policy committee, so if Tom isn't here, he might be able to give us a little rundown on what's taking place. So, Sean, you want to do the motions, or do you want Sean Ferry? Or, well, Levi's kind of hiding over there. Whoever would like to do the motions, we can. I'd like to have what's the account number for town manager?
You sat next to him.
Oh, he sat next to me.
Where is it? Let me just get the account numbers on here.
Don't you want like a going away present?
132.
132 is reserve fund, but we've got the request is from the town manager, and it's for the town manager account, correct?
No, neither of these are from the town manager's account per se.
Okay.
The first one we should probably talk about is the cultural activities budget.
Okay, there it is, cultural activities. So this is department. Okay.
So they were originally given a budget of $4,700, but that's not enough to. In years past, they've spent, $7,000 to $9,000 on Dalton days, and they're all freaked out because they're basically running out of cash, so what they're asking for is to plus up their budget specifically so they can do a better Dalton days, because things are expensive.
Okay, let's just get to the right page here. Here it is. There's the page I'm looking for.
So, and you can read through that whole portion.
I just want to council cultural aid at 693. Okay, so that's okay, all right. So it's be the motion would be to transfer from reserve fund account 132 to account 693, Dalton Cultural Council. And then in the amount of, that's all you have to do.
Okay.
So, all right, you can finish reading it. You can read it now or read it while we're in deliberation. However you'd like to do that, it's entirely up to you. Okay. Swing away, sir.
Okay, take a shot at it.
Yeah, give it a shot. You won't make a mistake, I can assure you.
Sure. Let's go for it though. I motion to transfer from account 1325782 to account 693 Dalton Cultural Council, the amount of $3,300.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded for, to transfer from account 132, 582, reserve fund to account, I got the wrong one, account 693, cultural activities, in the amount of $3,300. So this, what's their balance? Where are they at? That was the only part I was, okay. $3,800 for a tent.
Yeah, that's everything with the tent, the chairs, and it's the whole.
That's the whole, yeah, that's the whole,
Shouldn't
that's the
this
whole
still
show.
be zero?
Yeah.
What?
$300
Yeah, we won't actually pay sales tax on it.
They've already
That was the
taken,
original estimate.
looks like they've already used, I don't have the, I think I have it here. I think I have it here, let me see if I can get to it. Real quick, if I can get to it, I will. Received an email with the latest. I hadn't had an opportunity to send it out to everyone. There it is. That's not it. Oh. Well, I don't have it. I thought I did. At any rate, the most recent financial report. That's strange. At any rate, so it looks like they must have expended $2,500. Am I correct?
Well,
Leaving
so
4,700.
they've expended, as far as I understand, they've expended the money for the regular money for cultural activities. And they had specifically allocated, they had a line item in there that was allocated specifically to do Dalton Days. The problem is their total budget, even though they've applied some of their state cultural funds to this, is still a lot less than the last two times that they held Dalton Days. You know, in looking at the items they've identified and that they know their costs on so far, they're gonna be considerably over budget by the time they start putting in any of the entertainment. So what they're asking is that the fund get plussed up, so they essentially have a total of about $10,000 to do Dalton Days. That's what the request is.
This is the, we're looking at that. Thank you. Presently. I don't, judging by the expenses, it looks like, I think they're gonna be just, they'll be, with this added infusion. When do they think they're gonna have Dalton Days?
I think it's scheduled for some time in June.
Yeah, the
June
quote on the
13th?
10th says June 13th, so.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So actually, we're we would be so if they end up running over, we are within the period of time that we can move money from one account to another too. So if they don't have to panic, I guess is the best way to put that.
Right.
It's one of those, if for whatever reason, I kinda don't think that's a pretty healthy amount of money to make that happen. So, all right, okay.
So the, in the box, the expenditure is extraordinary and or unforeseen for the following reasons. That's August 2025, right, not 2026?
What are you looking at?
First sentence in the bottom box. The expenditure is unforeseen because the Dalton Cultural Council was not active until August 2026. That would mean it's gonna be active in 2026, so how did they come up with this? I think it meant to say 2025, correct? So last August they began looking at
Yep.
stuff,
That sounds,
so that's 2025.
yep.
Okay? And the chair of the Dalton Cultural Council is?
Don't know. I mean, for practical terms, I think Lori's the one who's running
Okay,
this.
fair enough.
I thought Jenny,
Jeannie?
Jeannie.
yeah, I think Jeannie Ingram is the,
I know she's on it. I don't.
yeah, she's the
Was she
chair,
the chair?
I believe. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe
All right.
Jeannie's the chair. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, she's got life in it. It was pretty quiet there for a while, unfortunately, but now it's moving right along. Alrighty. Are there any other questions or concerns relating to the transfer of $3,300?
Yes, one last one, please.
Yes.
Do we anticipate that this will be level funded over the next couple, 3 years?
Good question. Might have to look in the budget and see what we funded it for next year. It also depends to some extent on how much of the funds they get from the Mass Cultural Council that they feel they can allocate to this versus other projects.
How much are they allocating this year?
I think
$2,500.
2,300 or $2,500.
Okay, so we're getting a chunk, so we're getting 23%.
$2,000, sorry.
20% of the overall budget is being paid for by the state. Okay,
Brain was on
that's
that.
fair.
Something in that range, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. All right, I'm sorry, that's it. I don't have any
That's
other-
okay. Yeah.
Apologize.
Sounds like a plan, no need to apologize. Okay, are there any other questions or concerns? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, all those abstaining. That is unanimous, thank you.
So the second one is by virtue of the fact that the town signed a contract with LexisNexis 3 years ago. This is the last year of the contract. It was not budgeted for last year because they decided they didn't want LexisNexis, but unfortunately they'd already signed, they had an existing contract in place. And so we got a bill, and I'm like, well, we're not using it, so I'm not paying it. And they sent me a copy of the contract, which I didn't have, and I'm like, ooh, okay, I guess we're paying it. So the reality is, we legally owe them the money. I did, however, cancel our subscription to that, so that we won't get billed in the future.
And that, what does that provide us had we used it?
So it provides us a way to not store 100 years worth of Massachusetts legal documents and just to be able to have a searchable database of all the Massachusetts laws in one place, which is great, but you can just search the Mass database yourself if you want to see what's in, as opposed to using LexisNexis. So I just don't see that it's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody that I know of here is using it,
Okay.
and we're paying for the subscription. So
AI now.
what?
AI could probably find anything you
Well, I think,
That's good.
I mean, LexisNexis is an AI-driven search tool, but there are others, and nobody, to my knowledge, is using LexisNexis, so there's no reason to continue. Which is probably why it wasn't budgeted for last year, but apparently nobody bothered to look and realize that it was actually still under contract.
Yeah, interesting. I find it rather interesting that there wasn't some sort of an escape clause within that contract. So,
Maybe it had been reviewed by the
Huh?
contract committee, is that what you're
although,
saying?
yeah, although if
that what
it
you're
had
trying to
been,
say?
if the contract was brought before the finance committee, we might have spotted something like that. We have some rather sharp minds here. Just a little plug for the finance committee. A shameless plug for the finance committee.
Well, you would have known that it was in another year.
Well, yeah, we
Budget
would
for it.
have, yeah, we would have probably known a little bit more about it, so, all right, well, you wanna
Yep.
give us a motion? I'm gonna let you wanna go with the next motion, or we're gonna put Tom on the hook? We're good, we'll let Tom, we'll
No,
put
You're
Tom on the
stealing my
hook?
job. You're
Okay.
One's
stealing
enough
my
for
job.
that.
You're stealing my job. No, I'm good, fine with it.
There you go, Tom.
No, he's got it, I'm kidding.
Oh, he's got it.
No.
Listen, you two are killing me.
You started.
One of the two of you started.
No, he started it.
You-
so
Apparently you
that's
started it.
He's got to finish, sorry about
You
that.
did good on, you did really good on the last one.
Okay.
So, just remember to, just to mention.
Okay, 123.
Yeah, just remember to mention.
All right. I make a motion to transfer from account 132578, amount of $1,992 to account number 123.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to transfer from account 1325782 reserve fund to town manager account 123 in the amount of $1,992. Are there any other questions or concerns relating to this account, this amount?
I'm here.
Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. I had the other book. Yeah, that was over there. Okay, and I just don't let me forget to sign those, the originals, before we leave. All right, next.
Let's sign them right now.
I can
That way
sign
you
them.
won't forget.
I'm good. Let's. Okay, the end of the meeting is. Transfer sum of 1999200. There's one, sir.
Thank you.
There. That piece of paper is done. Now, next, let me just go. So we have, first and foremost, do we have a report from the capital planning?
Well, the capital planning committee is, it's continuation of the previous comments, which were that we are working hard toward being able to retain the Collins Center to be able to help us, support us as we create the first capital plan, first 5-year capital plan. And to accomplish that, the issue still in front of us is that we have to have 4 policies, 4 very particular policies completed in that time. And tonight I have the first of the 4 completed here. And those are policies that would pertain to the entire Dalton management, so of the town. So I envision that these are policies that will be approved by the capital planning committee, by the finance committee, and then the select board. So May I take this opportunity, Mr. Chair, to distribute a copy of this to each of the members present?
Hang on.
What you will notice in each of these is that there is just one highlighted issue which I think the capital planning committee will have to decide on, which is the range of capital investment the town can afford each year. Currently, it's listed somewhere between 6 and 9%, and Sandy and I went and took a look at, well, how much are we currently putting in? And between the amount of money we use to buy police cars, trucks, how much we transfer over into the stabilization funds, we're in the order of magnitude $600,000 to $700,000. So 6 to 9% of the operating budget, which is $10 million, is 6 to 900,000. So we're falling within that. So the recommendation of 6 to 9% is within what we are currently doing. So, but nonetheless, I think it's something to be reviewed. I just share with you as you're doing it so that you don't pause and wonder, where do we stand now? You've got that kind of answer going forward.
Okay, so I know you kind of you rolled both of them together on theirs, but I wanted to make sure that we talked first specifically about capital planning, and it sounds like you're moving in a good direction to try to get the Collins Center on board so that we can work on a capital plan. Correct. All right, thank you. Now on to a policy committee. I believe you had a meeting that. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday.
Okay, a meeting yesterday. So let's have it. Now you can go ahead and distribute.
Well, I'll do that while I chat.
That works quite nicely.
So yesterday we were reviewing the policies. There are 2 blocks of policies that have to be created. One that directly pertain to the finance committee, and another block that's more going to be pertaining to the treasurer and the town accountant and the technical collector and all that, and doesn't really involve the finance committee at all. The committee is working its way through that issue. They also feel strongly that we have to establish a document that helps others that come on board to the finance committee understand what being on the finance committee is, what some of the terms are, what some of the functions are, how those functions occur, how, when we make a motion, how do you make a motion, how do you table a motion, how do you get a motion off the table, how do you amend, just all the nuts and bolts. And so that people could sit there and, and basically educate themselves in, say, 10 pages as to how this whole thing, or have it as a Bible that they can refer to moving forward. So that is an additional focus that they wish to take on. Part of the committee is going to focus on that. Another part of the committee is going to focus on generating policies and procedures such as you have in your hand tonight. And part of my purpose of handing this out to you is, since I'm going to be turning to each and every one of the committee members to read this and say, hey, does this really explain things well enough to me? Is there anything missing from this that should be in here? Is there anything that I would correct, add to, or what have you, before we would bring it before the select board, before we would actually approve it within ourselves. So that's the reason for dropping it off. It also gives you a sense of what's coming. There are another 9 policies at least that will have to be considered, and this gives you a good sense of what to worry about and be sensitized to. And this is one of the 4 that we have to get to the Collins Center for us to be able to get the $85,000 to be able to support our retaining the Collins Center. And again, you'll see in here, if you peek and sneak through, that there are a couple of highlighted numbers, or backlit numbers, however you want to look at it, that are the 6 to 9%. There's also a couple of date things under procedure item 2, C and F, that those are dates. October and February are mentioned, but are those the dates that we really want? So we would decide on those. And this document basically is supposed to say what we do, and then after we say, yep, this is what we do, then we're just gonna do what we say. Any questions I can help you with any of this? Oh, and the other thing you might find helpful is to know that this is a compendium. This is based on the template handed out by the Collins Center. It's about 50% of that template. I tossed the other 50% out and added other things. I borrowed from DLS in the way it was presented in Great Barrington. I borrowed from Cheshire. I borrowed from a couple of towns in the Pioneer Valley. I took pieces that I thought were very helpful and useful, instructive, and incorporated them into the town. I expanded on the definitions. I included things like what is free cash, what are stabilization funds, to try to again make this a more usable document. I tried to define what a free cash was in a manner that somebody from the community that was just scratching their head and trying to understand if it's free cash, why are we even collecting more, what it really is. So that was it. Where it says why is this important used to be late titled background, but really what the intent was to say why is this particular policy and procedure important enough to be bothered with. This is trying to answer that question.
Good work. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the CIP? Or CIB?
CIB is the capital improvement plan and the capital improvement budget. Capital improvement plan is synonymous with the 5-year plan. Capital improvement budget is what we're planning on for this upcoming budget season.
Gotta be some pretty riveting television, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, well. So is this just, it seems to me that you just took on this particular document. Well, I can see, it looks like you just took on capital planning.
That's all. It's
Is this the whole 4 or whatever it
no.
is
This
they
is
want?
one.
Okay.
This is simply one.
All
This
right.
is the capital budget policies and procedure.
Okay.
And the capital budgeting piece, if you think about it in the context of Dalton, is going to be the primary burden of the capital planning committee. Now, we will keep the select board, we'll keep the finance committee informed with the product that's generated by it, but the heavy lifting is going to be done by the capital planning committee. So that's why there is more mention of the capital planning committee than anything else. In others, it's gonna be more finance committee, or select board, or treasurer, or whatever else
Yeah,
that's
okay.
carries the primary burden.
Okay. I have to take some time and dive into it a little bit.
Well, I appreciate your
Right.
all taking a few moments just to even look at it this evening, familiarize yourself. And please, if you have a question between now and wherever we meet to discuss this in a group, please don't hesitate, give me a buzz and ask. You're more than welcome to. Any and all input is much appreciated.
All right.
thank you for the opportunity to share this.
Okay, well, thank you. That's, okay, so we got, it's just a, it's a, so we're talking about the capital budget policy.
Okay, yes. Mhm.
Boy, spell it right, dummy. Okay. See, we'll, take a look at that. My advice is for our next regular meeting, if you'd like, it's kind of some light reading.
I would-
Rich knows it.
I would appreciate that because.
Yeah, just do some highlights and mark it up, and get it back to Tom.
That would be wonderful because I have to have all this stuff pulled, all four of them pulled together into the Collins Center by early July.
All right, next, we have two budgets remaining that we have to look through. One is streetlights, the other is voc ed. Let's just get those up, Tom. Is-
Wait a minute, hand.
Yeah, that'll be good, and I'll put it back in, I'm not sure how she wants
That's
me
fine.
raised in the book, in the good book.
Shall I go ahead and motion it?
Yeah, go ahead and motion.
I make a motion to approve the budget for vocational ed, Department number 320. It's comprised of solely of expenses in the amount of $605,020, and with that, a transportation of $115,579 for a total budget of $720,599. This is a $147,359 increase from the previous year, which is a 25.71% increase. Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry.
Motion been made and seconded. Motion will be made and seconded for vocational education, Department 320, in the amount of $605,020 in expenses and transportation of $115,579 for a total budget of $720,599, a 25.71% increase.
That's shown for the FY '26 voted budget. That was different.
That's what I was just looking at. My eyes finally went to the top, and
Well, remember, we had the budget, the corrected budget, and then you ended up having to go back and put the money back into it. So,
Shouldn't that be fiscal year 27?
yeah, it just hasn't been updated. Because if you look at
As long as it's, that's the only thing that has to be tweaked. and
that's the
we're good.
only. I think that's the
And
only
that's no
thing, because
big
I
deal.
think that those are the numbers.
No big deal.
Yeah, that's just a typo. That's all it is.
Mhm.
Put that in a good book here. Make sure you cross them out.
So those figures are correct?
That's what I was just kind of looking at here. So it's going down, take a check at this.
Okay.
Voc ed. Take this thing out so we can see it. That is what
In the
I'm.
good book, it's $720,599. Here, that helps you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. No, it should be actually, it says 817,473.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering.
You have it.
Voc ed 720, yeah, that, we have the wrong sheet.
Right, or this one.
There's another sheet behind that one. I assumed it was red because it was yellow.
Yeah, there's a set, it's on the back sheet,
Mhm.
on the back sheet.
Okay, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for
Thank you.
catching that, Susan.
Right, you can, we have a second, so
Right.
we can't pull it down, we'll have to
So,
amend it.
Hold on a second.
We can,
So,
we can
Mr.
do
Chair,
it, we
I
can
make a
do.
motion to amend the most recent motion in regard to vocational ed department 320. I motion to amend it to reflect expenses of $700,000 $58 and transportation day expense of $117,415 for a total expense, or total budget of $817,473, which is a $96,847 increase, or a 13.44% change.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to amend the budget for vocational ed, Department 320, to read $700,058 for expenditures and $117,415 in transportation, for a total budget of $817,473. And this is just for the amendment. Are there any questions relating to the amendment? Seeing or hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? That is unanimous. The budget now reads Vocational Education Department 320, the amount of $700,058 for expenses and $117,415 in transportation, for a total budget of $117,473 for a 13.44% increase.
You said 117.
Yeah,
It
you
should
meant
be 800.
Oh, I thought I said 817.
No, it's okay.
Going too quick. $817,473 of full budget.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, I know why I read that. I was reading that part first. I read that part first.
Yep.
Got ahead of myself. All right.
And obviously, the basic issue with this is that although the date has come and go for people to put in their selections, nobody's been notified yet. So we're just guessing at how many incoming freshmen we're gonna have. So the number could go up, the number could come down.
Yeah. Generally, we have, toward the tail end of September or the first week of October, we generally have a special town meeting to adjust this budget, to
Yep.
keep it, to help keep it in alignment with our tax rates and so on. So we're not ending up with either a huge bunch of free cash. Well, for a few years, we were coming back with a substantial amount of money in free cash because of it. But of late, young people are staying at the vocational education level. They're more likely to stay with it than they used to be. So it's a kind of I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but it's certainly something that is taking place. Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns with relationship to vocational education? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
All those opposed, all those abstaining. That is unanimous. All right. Next is here. Let's make sure we don't have the same
Right.
thing happen a second
Yep.
time. There you are, sir.
Yep. Okay, this is the requested budget for 2027. I make a motion for street lights, Department number 424, which is comprised of solely of expenses. It is a budget of $35,616, which represents $1,200 increase from the previous year, which is a 3.49% increase.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded for street lights, Department 424, for the amount of $35,616, comprised of expenses only, a 3.49% increase. I remember when this was almost $100,000. Thanks to all our LEDs, it is much less.
Dim them down a little bit.
I'd love to turn most of them off.
What's that?
I said I would love to turn most of them off.
Oh, I'd give anything to start shutting them off.
Yeah, turn off some of them at midnight. Why are they on?
Oh, it doesn't turn them off.
Mine.
People be out.
Oh,
running and stuff.
it's like blessed daylight around my house.
Yeah.
I suppose we could go, because the town, just to let you know, the town of Dalton now owns our lights. We could turn them on and off all we want. It used to be that we leased, I think it was leased the light, we used to lease the lights. So that if we decided to turn them off, we still had to pay for them.
But they're not metered,
No,
so you'd still be paying for them whether you turn them on or not, unless you notified them that you were taking them offline completely.
yeah,
You're still gonna get charged for them.
yeah.
You
Wow.
better just put baffles.
I'm not I'm not so much concerned about the cost of the electricity. I'm concerned about the light pollution in my neighborhood. Oh my God.
Heavy curtains.
Oh man.
That's what I had to do in my house.
Yeah.
Basically, I felt like I was under a searchlight.
Oh,
They're not good for insects and birds and stuff. You should, new ones are more covered so the light goes down. That's
Yeah.
shut it down and not.
yeah. You don't.
Everyone's windows and up in the air.
I do notice that they don't have this cloud of bugs around them. I know that sounds weird that anybody would even notice this, but
Give it a few months.
yeah, give it a few months. That's a great way to look at it. All right. Well, is there any other further? If just let you know, if you do want to shut a light off, you could file a notice of complaint about the light, put it before the traffic commission, and the traffic commission will take a look at it. That's a fact.
And if it really worked well, wouldn't the traffic
I
commission
was
chair
gonna say.
have turned off all the lights in front of his house? Just saying, I'm a little confused, but I thought you.
No, don't be confused. He just hasn't bothered to go ahead and write a note yet. That's kind of what that boils down to. All right. Are there any other further questions or concerns relating to streetlights? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. So, last but not least, for item 7 under new business is a stormwater report, and it has relation to do with the capital planning. Do you have a report, Tom, on that? Or are we still waiting?
Well, I passed out the document at a previous meeting, which shows the phase 2 and phase 3 budgeting of items necessary in order to bring the stormwater system in Dalton into compliance with the state regulations and simultaneously provide adequate definition of our underground infrastructure so that we are in a good position to engineer any breaks and what have you. And this will be a very helpful document to the capital planning committee, so we can, knowing that we've got a very aged infrastructure, can start considering what we would replace. The Stormwater Commission has evaluated this plan in detail and has approved the budget that you have in front of you. And it's for phase 2, it's $118,000. Phase 1 was $97,000, and as you'll note, phase 3 is $83,000, and that will complete everything. That will document our entire stormwater underground system and our entire sanitary sewer system, all within ArcGIS maps. So the engineers will not have to go and dig and find all of that. There'll be a time savings and a cost savings for any project that we have to deal with in the future, not the least of which would be when we redo roads, to have that information in advance so when we can actually plan what we're going to do with a road that is scheduled to be repaved the following year. So I think the look here is for folks to determine and opine whether or not they feel this was within Dalton's reach to pay for this, and to determine how best to budget for it, whether it's to be funded by free cash, or to be funded by the sewer stabilization fund, or by some other means. And from here, the intention is to go to the select board, share with them the stormwater committee's findings and details, the finance committee's opinion and recommendations, and obtain their approval or commentary in regard to this phase 2 work.
How much was the phase 2?
$118,000.
I had noted, I don't know if this is correct, we use the sewer stabilization for phase one?
I believe that's correct.
In phase three, Tom?
Phase 3 is 83,000.
83,000, that's what I thought.
Basically, it's $100,000 a year. We busted it up rather than doing a big chunk because the select board was far more comfortable doing it in little pieces than en masse. And it was good they did, because we learned a little bit and infused that into phase 2, added things and removed things.
So, I guess the part that, when it comes to funding this thing, I guess the question that comes to mind is, stormwater and sewer water are kind of two different things. One goes down to utility drive, the other is supposed to go to a river. Am I correct?
Essentially,
All right. So, in phase 2, is that focusing on stormwater, how it relates to the sewer connections?
no,
Or does phase 3 take that into account?
nope.
Or does none of it?
What it will do is, they are considered separately. And in phase 2, the sewer is probably, I would say, 20% of the overall cost. So it's only a minor chunk of the total cost of phase 2.
So it sounds to me like phase 2 would probably come out of capital stabilization or free cash, whichever. Eric, have you got? We're going to go into it in a little bit. A rough idea on free cash.
You wanna share that now?
Well, just what it is I'm trying to decide how to approach this phase 2, whether to use free cash or capital stabilization. It's kind of a long-range plan.
Do you envision that it will need to be a warrant article to get approved?
It will have to be a warrant article regardless,
Okay.
because we don't handle either one of those, capital or free cash. So it would definitely have to be a warrant article. It just has to be, a decision has to be made on whether to.
What's
I don't
the-
think we have to have, and correct me anyone if I'm wrong, I don't think we need to have a 2/3 majority to remove money from capital, any of the stabilization accounts, to utilize them for whatever they're deemed acceptable. I think they did away with that, or found out that we didn't need to.
Simple
A
majority.
couple of years ago, it's a simple majority, I believe. Were you here? No, you weren't here for last year's.
Yeah, I can't tell you that. I mean, I can tell you that if you flip to the front of your binder, I have a list in there of what the stabilization fund balances are. It's one of the very first documents right after my budget goals and the sheet that shows debt. So it should be before that binder.
So it's the one that's stabilization fund balances?
Yep. So you can see what's in the stabilization funds currently.
Oh, there it is. Now, I know it's gonna sound like a crazy question, but have any of those increased in value, Eric, in recent months with the crazy way the stock market's gone?
Should have decreased.
No, because we
Oh, I didn't know.
have to
Curious.
invest so conservatively.
So it's bank investments, so it doesn't
So-
go down, it only goes up.
You know, you're
That's
talking a couple percent
Here's-
per
here you
year.
Much
Not
of
more.
I'm trying to see if it's even in my book.
Would be back here,
What are you looking for?
should be back here. If it's going to be at all.
Huh, yeah, anyway, that's all right.
And then, but you're in the right area, it's after this page. so just one page beyond it, and then it's sitting right underneath it. There you go.
So if you look at that page, this was my original notes on what should be in each fund. The only thing different is that the Board of Selectmen felt they didn't want separate stabilization funds, they just wanted sub-funds under capital stabilization for road improvement and capital equipment. So that's what we're going to, that's what the warrant article will state. And I put in there what I thought the appropriate funding source was for those, and then what the minimum emergency, or what the minimum reserve funding that should be kept in them.
Where does the minimum show up, please? On the same page with. and I'm
Down,
just
if you look at where the totals are,
Okay,
you know, I put what I thought we should be for a total percentage. You know, in other words, what should be in it should be either a percentage, like of the operating budget, for instance, or, you know, what the minimum should be in terms of an emergency reserve.
so, for the individual funds, you don't have a target, just, it should be 1%, 1.5% of the overall budget?
So, yeah, and I need to revisit them because I have more information now. But I mean, for general stabilization, the goal should be that we have in the general stabilization about 12% of our annual operating budget, because that is essentially our reserve if we have a financial hiccup. Like, let's say we get the tax capitulation out, you know, tragically late, and we can't assess that until the fourth quarter of the year, you know, so we are going to be low on revenues, you know, essentially the first 3 quarters of the year, and we don't get into it. Or if potentially we never pass a budget in time for the July 1 start date in the first tax bills. You know, you generally want, per GFOA, about 12% of your operating budget in some sort of emergency fund. Now that can be free cash, or it can be socked away in some sort of permanent fund. I think the appropriate way to do that is put that in general stabilization. I think that's the safest, because free cash goes up and down every year depending on how much you allocate on it. Whereas general stabilization, you need to, you know, the town needs to vote to take that money out of general stabilization. So that's kind of the first one. In terms of litigation stabilization, we basically have $500,000 in that fund. I don't think we should put any more money in than $500,000. You know, $500,000 is an awful lot of attorney's fees. It would be hard to imagine that we crunch through that. We are going to be dipping into that because we are about to be sued by BCC, and the Board of Health is probably in turn going to sue them over their aspect of it. That's my guess in the next couple of months. But that's neither here nor there. The money's already in there.
Yeah, we'll have to have a special town meeting for that.
Presumably.
To move that, to be able to access that money, we'll need a special town meeting for that.
Well, so
We could be looking at it in September, of course. That's a good
yeah,
kind of target.
yeah,
If we can get some level of and here's the thing: if we don't use it, we can put it back as
Right.
well. So the thought process being, if we could come up with some, I know this sounds like a reach, but some level of estimate, so that
right,
we can move it in September, that would probably be beneficial.
right. Well, when we get to the funding sheet, I'll identify that.
Oh,
'Cause I think
okay, cool.
The select board,
Carry
you know,
on.
part of the warrant articles will be to transfer to, have an article to take money from legal stabilization into, into an article to be able to use, because we are gonna start running up legal fees. And we're gonna blow through what was put in the article last year for legal fees relatively quickly, I think.
Okay.
So the capital stabilization and the sewer stabilizations we haven't quite defined yet. Capital stabilization is gonna come out of whatever the CIP is this fall, right?
Yes.
Based on what you're putting here, your per building capital plans.
Yeah, so the way I look at it is, there's essentially gonna be three chunks of capital funding: capital equipment, road improvement, and capital stabilization. Capital stabilization is geared towards buildings themselves. Capital equipment is geared for both the police department and public works and COA's capital equipment needs. Maybe some other departments too, but those are the big three. And then road improvement is gonna be essentially town funds that will augment the money that the state gives the town every year for road improvement, because we just don't have enough state money to keep our roads from deteriorating further.
And do you have a tentative percentage in mind for what the per building, if the building plan was, we need $30 million over the next 20 years? How would you then translate that into some percentage, or what our target might be for building capital stabilization?
I mean, that one's gonna be hard, because frankly, we're going to struggle to come up with enough money to address our building needs. So,
Would we want to consider that the engineering, 9 times out of 10, we're gonna get stuck with the engineering. So, and engineering tends to be, pick a number, 10% roughly of the overall project cost. So if we had $30 million that we had to build for buildings, so we should be tentatively projecting 3 million, rough numbers. Does that sound decent, or proper order of magnitude at least?
yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna need hundreds of millions of dollars in that fund. If you think about it, the big ticket items building wise that would be coming down the pike is building a new police department, number one. And number two would be changes to the town hall to make it ADA accessible.
Yep.
For the long haul.
Yep, maybe upgrade the third floor. Just be an opening, use the third floor. Yep, totally agree.
But honestly, I don't think we need to if we put the police department in a different building.
I mean, you just cannibalize what's there for offices. Yeah.
I think we have enough office space there.
That would be so sweet to be back in the crane room. I like the crane room, it's a nice place. It was nice working down there, so, cool. All right. So it seems like we've got our, so we're still contemplating a percentage of the operating. Well, I would have to say that we would probably, for capital stabilization, once the capital planning committee gets together in that, then we can project it. So that'd be good.
Yeah, I mean, some things, you can kind of rough out. Like,
Yeah.
if you think about sewer stabilization, you can pretty much figure out what the total cost of the sewer asset is in town. And about 1.5% of that is gonna need to go in every year, because that means you're targeting a life expectancy of 60 to 75 years, something like that, which is probably maybe conservative, because I mean, let's face it, we got pipes sitting there that are 130-year-old now. So maybe we'll get that long out of the next replacement pipes. But we need to be planning for capital, because we've been under-investing, certainly in sewer infrastructure. And water's worse, even though that's not our direct responsibility.
Oh, it's gonna end up being, sooner or later. All right. So I would say, so we're shifting from a larger amount of, we're gonna be inputting larger amounts of money into the stabilization accounts and then utilizing the stabilization accounts instead of borrowing money? Is that where we're headed?
That's the goal.
Or reduce
Okay.
the amount we have to borrow.
I mean, I don't wanna be borrowing we do a fair amount of short
Yeah.
duration borrowing.
Mhm.
You know, I don't wanna do any of that. I mean, I wanna borrow if we're gonna build, you know, a $15 million building. We're not gonna have cash in hand for that. But I don't wanna borrow for anything under, you know,
500,000.
well, I would say in the millions. You know, below that, we should be saving up and paying for it when we have the money.
Work with that. Can work with that. Just have to be patient.
Yep.
Patience
So
is
it
a
looks
virtue.
like,
All right.
if we were to take the $1,103,000 and divide it by 0.015, that would project that if our sewer system costs $73 million or less, that we're already kind of where we need to be with the sewer stabilization fund. We just need to keep tossing in, 1.5% per year just to stay where we are, or stay ahead.
Well, I don't think that's probably, so in terms of order of magnitude, when you look at the cost of the sewer end of things is roughly analogous to the cost of the water end of things. Not quite as much because you don't have dams you have to, or large tanks that you have to replace. But right now on the priority list for the water department to fix is around 60 million, of work they need to do right now. So I think your total asset costs for both the sewer and the water is in the hundreds of millions to replace. So I think that number's, what we have in there now is low overall.
So in the future, sewer stabilization is gonna be water stabilization? Or how are you,
No, I
I'm
mean,
trying to understand why you added water to.
so the
conversation.
water's not our responsibility. I'm just saying, we have basically around 46 miles of sewer pipe and around 46 miles of water pipe. And it's not much different cost per mile for one versus the other. Obviously, the costs change quite a bit based on the diameter of the pipe and whether it's buried under a state road or a town road or in somebody's backyard. But I think, I think we can guess that, there's more than $100 million of infrastructure in town for both of those. And both of those are behind on deferred replacement by probably north of $50 million.
And if we add to that the stormwater system, which is appropriate.
Yep.
then that only increases it by an additional 50% above and beyond on those numbers, so we're looking at 150 million-ish.
Yep. The problem is, we're never gonna come up with that money. I mean, we're gonna grant fund as much as we can, and we're gonna work at it as fast as we can. And we're gonna put as much money as the public will allow us and can stomach and can afford into it to keep chipping away at these problems. And do the best we can. And you don't really have any other option.
So just going, to me, it seems like the general stabilization fund at 1.28 million is pretty much already at 12% of the budget, so it doesn't really need a particularly large infusion of cash. The litigation stabilization fund is where it needs to be. The capital stabilization fund is still in a fuzzy region. It might get a little, but right now, the big chunk of money, if we were to allocate it from free cash this year, probably should go into sewer stabilization, if I understand things correctly.
So I'm proposing that we put $350,000 from free cash into sewer stabilization this time around.
Okay, and how much would you put into, capital stabilization?
Capital stabilization, I would put 200 in, but that's assuming I'm also putting, about 125K into capital equipment in the sub-stabilization fund and 200,000 into the road sub-stabilization fund.
So is 200 a total, or is 200 a partial for what goes into capital stabilization if we consider that road improvement, capital equipment are within capital stabilization?
So that's not the total. The total is those three amounts.
Okay, so is 200 for this, the building capital stabilization?
You know what, instead of talking about it, since I
Yeah,
have it on the
let's-
sheet, why don't we
yeah.
just look at the sheet? And then we can talk about it from there, instead of me trying to explain in words.
Well,
what put
I
on
was
paper.
kind of wondering why we're headed down this road and sitting here looking at this and thinking of this.
Right. So, and if you look up top, I anticipated that we were going to use free cash for the sewer stabilization, the MS4 stormwater stuff, and sewer stabilization, because I think it looks like we might need a little bit more money to finish off the engineering project. I don't know at this point, but I just want to do it so we don't have a special meeting if we have to add a little bit of money extra to the design portion, if that makes sense.
The Dalton Division Road sewer engineering project, once we have the engineering done on that, is there any, do you know if there's any money available through DEP, I think it is?
So we're looking hard right now at
To
what
see if they-
grant funding
Yeah,
is
okay.
available for that.
Okay.
Because that's rough numbers right now, we're looking at around 2 million, a little over 2 million. Depending on how we do it, if we do it concurrently with the road reclamation and road building, if we do it all in one construction season, we can save money. But there's some advantages in terms of stabilizing the actual road to do the sewer the year first and then do the road. So, but that's more expensive, and we're digging up the road twice and repaving, and then reclaiming it.
Stand over them and make sure they bed the pipe the way you're supposed to bed the pipe and compact the earth like you're supposed to compact the earth, and you don't have a problem. It's who's gonna stand over them?
Well, but the problem is that in a bunch of these sections, the sewer pipe is gonna be down 15 to 16 feet below the surface. So it's a big, really big cut, and that's a lot of compaction. And assuming that it's gonna get perfectly compacted, no matter how much you stand over them, it's not a horrible idea to do that a year ahead of time.
No, it's
Let
if
it
you can
sink
do it.
and settle and then redo the road.
Oh, I agree.
But then it means you're partially closing the road 2 years in a row for the whole summer. And so, people aren't gonna be too excited with you if you do that. It's less inconvenience if you do it all in one construction season.
I just, is it, let me ask you, and I know you haven't been at this very long. How important in the world of sewer systems and septic systems and things of that nature, how important is it that we have public sewer for 12 houses?
Well,
To the tune of $2 million. Because $2 million would put all new septic systems in all those houses probably 4 or 5 times over.
So.
How far off am I?
So, that is a question I raised with the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen is clearly on board with finishing off the project for Dalton Division Road. And so if that's the direction they give me, my goal is to fundraise as much of that as possible. The other thing to keep in mind is there is a lot of open land that is off of Dalton Division Road that is developable. And that is one of the things we're gonna be looking at with the BRPC grant this year, is exploring what zoning regulations we can to make that more amenable to, because the problem we have is that if you're gonna do a subdivision today, and you're in an area like that where you have 1+ acre zoning, then your development costs are much higher because you have much more road infrastructure per house. So we're talking about rezoning that to R3 or R4 so we can allow much denser housing in there. So yes, for the number of current houses, it's a very expensive. But if you look at where potentially Dalton could expand, that is one of the areas that we could do residential expansion in that area. And having sewer available, I mean, the plan is basically to stub out some really big laterals where the access points to that land is, to make it capable of future development.
Why is
So-
it zoned the way it is now? Because of the topography, or is there a reason, do you know?
Well, in part because there wasn't any sewer available, so you can't have tight houses if everybody's got their own on-site well and septic system. It just doesn't work. So, if you put sewer, I mean, really practically, if you have good soils, you can get away with roughly 30,000 square foot building lots and have on-site well and septic if you have good, well-draining soil.
It's not up there.
And that's kind of the minimum you can deal with. If you look at like Green Ridge, you have 1/4 acre, 1/3 acre, much smaller lots, much higher density. That only works. Take away the sewer, and none of those houses are buildable there. So that would be the difference.
If you were to take the tract of land that you're considering and convert it over, as you might hope, to R3 or R4, how many homes roughly do you think you could stick in that area?
I mean, without doing a full build-out
I
study,
understand, rough
back
guess.
of the envelope calculation said it would hold about 250 houses.
So if we do 250 houses, and they pay $8,000 a pop, we're going to be paying for the system in no time flat, in fact, in less than a year. For if we invest $2 million into stubs and all that other stuff. Because we make that possible, and at the same time, we don't rip up our road when they have to stub in.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a way to future-proof the town and allow the possibility, but I mean, we don't own the property. We can't necessarily tell the person that's there how they're gonna subdivide or what they're gonna do,
Yep.
or even but, we can make it possible.
Right.
And I will admit that I have some reservations because our sewer costs are going up so dramatically already
Mm-hmm.
that adding another $2.5 million project when we know we have a lot of repairs to our existing project, that's gotta be weighed pretty carefully. But ultimately, I think the Board of Selectmen has looked at that and decided that they feel it's worth doing. So
Mhm.
therefore, I'm gonna pursue it.
Understood.
Sounds like a plan. All right, well, let's move on from this. It's getting late. All right, on to the where was So Eric's presented us with this, the anticipated capital expenditures that we see each year. Generally, we take this up, we get this kind of sheet now, and then toward the end of April, another about 2 weeks, we'll have another meeting to go over the motions and explanations that'll be presented at town meeting. And we usually go through this at that time as well. So we go through two things on that, at that meeting. So it'll be one more meeting this month. We'll see what's going on for June. Maybe we'll get lucky and be able to skip June, I hope. So, but anyways, Eric, you wanna kinda give us a rundown of what your plans are with our blue sheet?
Sure. So the first one is we're just acknowledging that, we have state funding for Chapter 90, which is roadwork funding. That's about $347,000. This is all, of course, dependent on what the state legislature does, but presuming that they go through with the funding that they've kind of historically increased it to lately, that's the number we would have to work with. To put it in perspective, if we're reclaiming a road, that would allow us to reclaim about 3/4 of 1 mile out of our 35 miles of road. So that's not a very big number, just so we're kind of ballparking what we can do with that. The second thing down after that is the stormwater stuff that Tom is spearheading as the chair of the stormwater committee. That's proposed to be $118,000, which is what we would be looking for in a contract with the company that did the work last year. Because we went to a full-blown RFP process last year and satisfied mass procurement, the attorney says we can just continue on with the same contractor, since essentially we had a big proposal last year and we cut down the amount we did just based on funding. So now we're just adding back in year 2 some of the things we cut out of the first year. The next one down is sewer stabilization. That's taking money from sewer stabilization and putting an article in so that money's available to spend now on the Dalton Division Road sewer engineering project. So that's that. So the next one down is there was an article approved last year that took free cash and spent it on the town, or on the replacing one of the sewer mains from the town hall that has had a history of clogging in the police department. Ultimately, it was determined that even though we have engineering plans on how to do it, we can't actually do it while the communications center is in business, because we would be jackhammering essentially partially under the slab under the communications center, which would not be popular or practical. So we've looked at a couple options. The first is just better maintenance on that. And the second is moving the paper towel dispensaries and the 2 bathrooms that feed that. Because the reality is a portion of that is just putting the wrong things down the septic system or the sewer that, so having done that, there hasn't seemed to be any additional problems in the last year plus. So we're gonna take that money and just simply have a warrant article and repurpose that money to do 2 things. One, primarily in the police department, do the HVAC upgrades, which is bringing in fresh air into the basement to cut down on the mold a little bit, although there really is not. It's more an illusion of mold than actual mold. But we do know that several areas of that building have higher than optimal concentrations of carbon dioxide, specifically the communication center and some of the offices. So the goal is a heat recovery ventilator to bring fresh air into those spaces from the outside. And then potentially look at ductless split systems for probably 2 of the offices. There's already 1 in the communications, so they're pretty well taken care of. So the 2 administrative offices, and then the main kind of like officer's room in the back. So that's kind of the goal, is to take money that was already set aside by the town and just say, okay, we can't use it for its original purpose, so we're just gonna retitle it if the townspeople approve, and spend that money on a variety of smaller scale plumbing and HVAC problems. So the next one is legal stabilization, and taking $50,000 from legal stabilization and dedicating it in an article to legal action related to BCC. Because I think that's going to be, which is the same thing the town did last year.
Would that make the new amount of money 100,000? I think it was 50,000 we did last year. Will that set that up to be 100,000 this year? Do you know?
No, because that
Okay.
$50,000 is about half spent already.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
And when we go to actually litigate, that's gonna get chewed up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And we have been officially notified that BCC is appealing the planning board decision to the court system. So we're gonna be in litigation probably in the next month or so. So the next one is capital equipment sub-stabilization. Presuming we actually put money in the fund in the first place, it would be a request to transfer $75,000 to be available for capital equipment. In other words, we put money in the capital equipment sub-stabilization every year. We approve expenses, and we haven't gotten to it yet, but I'll give you Bud's capital equipment request after this conversation, and then we spend it out of that fund. So we level fund it every year. We put the same amount in based on our capital plan and how much we think over 15 years we're gonna need to put in every year. So we fund it from free cash or directly from the budget, and then we spend out of that capital stabilization fund for the actual purposes. Because I think that's the most transparent way to do it. There are other options, and if you want to pursue them, we certainly can. But that's how I think it's appropriate. So, and then the last one on that subject is road sub-stabilization, and that's transferring money so that it's available for Bud, and that's going to be used for road shimming primarily, and possibly cracks. And part of the reason I want to do this is economic. And that is what we really need to do, is we need to find a little paving company that we can work with. I mean, we know we still got to pay them prevailing wage, but what we want is a small company that's willing to do thin shims for us. And that's not something we can do easily with the Chapter 90 money, because we either have to use a state-approved contractor who are all bigger, or we have to go to RFP every time we want to do it. What we want to do is establish a replacement with a small local guy that's willing to come in with a paving box and do thin shims so we can start chip sealing roads in the future. So that's really just because we recognize one of the limitations in the Chapter 90 program is we really can't do that type of work with Chapter 90 money. So we go down to free cash. There looks like there's going to be some prior unpaid bills, which is something we almost every year shore up with free cash. I don't think it's going to be a lot. I'm guessing it's going to be 10,000 or less. We're going to need to transfer money to cover this year's snow and ice deficit. I don't have anywhere near final numbers, but my guess is it's going to be around $60,000. We, and this is a Tom question, do we need to transfer money in for the professional and technical services with Berkshire BRPC related to stormwater? How are we paying them for that?
That's a pure stormwater problem, so my reaction is it sounds more like a capital stabilization type fund or free cash. There are only two options to pay for that.
Right, but I guess my question is, do we know what we're gonna owe them for that? Because
No
they've been
idea.
helping them all along, and we've been paying for it, but I haven't seen anything like a contract or an understanding of how that is done.
I've seen nothing myself.
Okay.
And the only information I've gotten, this is about culverts and so forth, is what I've learned from you. So I have
Okay.
nothing on top, you've got everything I've got.
Okay, well, I have essentially nothing for that, other than we budgeted for it last year.
Okay?
So
But it
that's,
has not been something that the BRPC rep to the stormwater has discussed at all.
okay. So I think we probably gotta reach out to them and see if we need to be socking away money for their participation. OPEB reserve, I think we can avoid funding OPEB reserve. We happen to be in really good shape with both our pension reserve investment board as well as the money that we put in for OPEB. So we can take a pass at that because we are basically fully funded at this point. Which is kudos to the town of Dalton, because a lot of towns, you know, I was talking to a town a couple weeks ago they were all excited because they had gotten from 2% funded to 9% funded on their OPEB liability. And we're actually fully funded, so we're in good shape there. So I'm anticipating no money into OPEB. The $100,000 for the reserve fund, that I think is probably appropriate for free cash. I'm anticipating spending about $200,000 of free cash to reduce the tax rate. That is controversial. That is something that DOR does not like to see. But I think as long as we keep the amount we put in to reduce the tax rate to under 10% of what we have available in any given year for free cash, that's a pretty safe assumption. But maybe the finance committee disagrees with me. If you had a policy on free cash, I would abide by it, but since you don't, that's my recommendation. And then in terms of the additional stabilization funds, I broke it out into general stabilization, capital roads, capital equipment, sewer, and legal, with recommended funding amounts. So that's what I'm proposing.
Do we have our free cash certified yet?
We do
You know-
not,
Doesn't free cash only get certified like in September timeframe?
it's supposed to.
Yeah, it's about
I thought it
September,
was,
October.
I thought it was March.
No,
Well, historically, Dalton has certified free cash in late February, early March, late March. But we have not yet gotten it certified. However, unofficially, we know it's north of $2 million. Stating it at $2 million is a pretty conservative number. It's probably more like 2.2, but until DOR evaluates it and decides, you know, there are things, expenses they may assign to this year versus next year. There were a couple grants that were paid right at the September 30 cutoff that may or may not go this year versus next year. So conservatively, we pretty much know free cash is gonna be north of 2 million, but I wouldn't go on the record and say it's gonna be 2.1 or 2.2. Just at 2 million, I'm pretty confident in it.
Right. That's that. Is there anything, thank you, Eric, much appreciated. Is there anything else to come before the Finance Committee this evening? I have just one thing, and it's, I'm trying to get just a feel from the Finance Committee on it, is we've done it, I think we've done it once, maybe twice in the past, and I'm getting rumblings that people would be interested in a pre-annual town meeting, kind of a town hall type of question and answer event. I'm thinking it would be the Tuesday before the annual, is what I think. That's where people, kind of the sweet spot for where people are at with it. So it would be an evening thing, and I don't know if that's something that that the Finance Committee would like to weigh in on, just yay or nay, or we can just kind of leave it alone and let the Select Board decide. However that works. Of course, I'll be at the, if they choose to do that, I'll be at that meeting, and I don't want to speak for Tom, but I think it's safe to assume Tom would be there, and any Finance Committee members that would sit in the audience. And if people happen to have a question, and they can ask a Finance Committee member quietly for an answer or for some clarification from what we've spoken about, that would be rather helpful at that. So it's just one of those things that a few people have asked me about it. Are we going to do that this year? And it seems to be gaining in popularity. So, and I don't know.
When would it be again?
2 weeks prior to the town meeting, so people have time to digest it.
It would.
And I think it's been, if you don't mind me saying, I think it's been very impactful. I think a lot of questions get raised, and I think it takes a fair amount of the burden off of the annual town meeting. Hastens it a bit because people already have their heads somewhat screwed on and understand what they are or not voting about.
I'm all for it. I mean, the question is, in the past, how many people have actually attended?
Decent number.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know, in
the last time it was 20, I believe.
20?
Yeah, last time I think it was 20. It was last time it wasn't a ton, but I'm just looking, just to let you know, I'm looking at my calendar. It would probably take place on the 28th of April, because the annual town meeting takes place on the 4th. Is that? Have you gotten a sense of where the Select Board would be on that?
It hasn't, I think they're still a little mad that they offered to hold online and have Dalton TV film it, and requested questions from everybody and got exactly one question, and decided that if people aren't gonna give them questions, there's not really any reason for them to go on Dalton television and explain it all. So, but we haven't discussed that. Wasn't aware that was really a thing. That was brought to my attention today. Ordinarily in my experience, the finance board would hold at least one public hearing on the final budget just prior to sending it to public meeting. But the process here is a little different, so I'm still trying to figure out what the actual process is.
It's main, and the reason the question is coming out, because I as a finance committee, and we would have to, of course, vote on it, only because the reason we would have to vote on it is because I would be speaking on behalf of the finance committee, so I need their permission. But it's mainly is trying to have. I want to be inclusive of the select board. We don't want to be out there, talking about some things that the select board may have an opinion of. They certainly they certainly are a very good body to be working on it. So it's I want to make absolutely sure that they have, we don't want to, I want to collaboratively with them work out a date and a time and all of that business. From kind of a personal viewpoint, I like to have the finance committee meetings at 6 o'clock at night, and it seems over the years that the select board prefers to be 7 o'clock. That's kind of small potatoes, but I'm sure would work through that part. But what does should we do we want to have a motion to support? Is that something?
Why don't you make a
do, or
motion
should I-
and then you write a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying, hey, we think it'd be really appropriate to do this, and here's the date where we think it would be appropriate.
Let me
And
get my
we'd
pen
love to
out.
participate if you guys are interested in doing that. And I will certainly pass that on to them tomorrow morning, and
I make
Yeah.
a motion that we hold a pre-town meeting at a date to be determined prior to the annual town meeting to inform the residents of Dalton about the reasoning behind the annual town budget and to answer any and all questions they may have concerning thereto.
You're gonna make me repeat that, aren't you?
Yeah, please do.
Probably not gonna
Word
happen.
for word.
I was listening closely. I thought I was gonna shorten it up there, Tom. Thank you very much. Okay. Motion's been made, and seconded to
Hold it.
that's what I was writing down. I'm trying to think of the rest of it. To hold a pre-advisory meeting for the townspeople with relation to the articles and information. Right. Is there any other discussion or any questions about what this would be encompassing? Seeing or hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? That's unanimous. So I'll send a letter over to the select board, the select board chair and the town manager, requesting their input on holding a pre-town meeting, I guess. I'll have to dream up a name of some sort, but a pre-town meeting to answer any questions that the public may have.
And if they show any interest, it probably is gonna be a great idea to kind of publicize it so more
Oh, yeah.
people are aware than not.
Yeah, and we'll be able to get we kind of have to actually have the motions, the motions and explanations available for that meeting. So we'll have we're working diligently at getting those done for everyone.
Can you
So-
send that message out on the alert system of the town, please?
not currently with Code Red. The only thing we can do would be an emergency alert.
I know.
We can't use Code Red for that? Never mind. You don't have to answer that
I was
question.
You could.
Trust me, you don't have to answer that question.
I was shilling and making those anxious for the new system that would allow such a thing.
We
And
have
it
it.
would be extremely handy
We have a new
Yes.
system?
coming.
Oh, well,
It'll be here.
so it's Christmas.
Well, this will be here before Christmas,
You think?
guarantee it, before Thanksgiving.
Oh my God,
Before
we're moving to it,
Halloween.
but- Okay, so I'll get that, I'll try to get that letter off tomorrow.
Yep, perfect.
I'll address it to the chair and to yourself.
Yep, I will make sure they get it. Or you can send it to all of them directly, either, depends on whatever your preference is.
Yeah, we'll work it out. We'll see how all these new buttons I have in front of me in that computer work. They'll work really well. They'll all get it. So as long as my buttons they've been working pretty good lately. So, all right. Is there any? I see we just had another piece of paper kind of come across the desk here with the cabinet.
Yep, what you and I and Bud talked about today,
Oh boy, this will be fun.
capital request.
Isn't that
Okay.
That's what was passed by the select board this past week.
Yes,
Monday.
the select
Okay.
board has approved this. And I'll just summarize this very quickly. As part of this year's capital plan, Bud has recommended the purchase of 2 items. The least expensive is a Skag mower. That's right around $11,000 in that range, to replace a 10-year-old mower. Because they mow a lot in the summer between all the cemeteries and all the athletic fields. It's used by both Public Works and occasionally the CRA guys use it to mow also the fields when Public Works is too busy to do it. The second, and probably more expensive, definitely more expensive, and probably more critical to the town, is a replacement chipper. This replaces a 1997 chipper that has been problematic for a while. The chipper is one of those things you don't use all the time, but what happens is when you have a storm and you have a lot of stuff down in the road, it's a key piece of safety equipment to get roads up and being able to get that brush off the road and deal with storm damage. So those are the 2 items that Bud is requesting, and the Board of Selectmen has approved the purchase of both those items. Therefore, I'm bringing it before the Finance Committee. And then if you looked in the capital sheet that I gave you, you would notice that lines up for the capital equipment sub-stabilization request from Public Works. And I apologize for the picture.
Hey, great pictures.
I'm just
Thanks,
now
Bud.
looking at them as
Black
they
and
ran
white.
off. So I
Yeah.
made color, they were from color copies that looked perfectly clear and clearly indicated the need for
If it-
replacement.
You know, the thing is, if
These
that
are the
copier-
Stealth Night chippers.
If the thing is, if that printer, I found out today, you can't use grayscale on that printer. If it had grayscale, you get black and white pictures, but it doesn't have grayscale on the printer. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, so
All
I
right.
apologize for the
Right,
poor.
so it looks like we've got everything trimmed for Bud to end up kind of doing away with an extremely old piece of equipment that's broken already. All right,
Right.
all right, so I don't think,
Now,
Did you want
do we
to-
feel the
Do
need?
you guys have to
make-
actually approve these? I mean, the Board of Selectmen's voted for it. Do you vote for it too?
These
I haven't
are
gone
warrant-
through this with
These are
you
gonna be
before.
warrant articles.
These are
And
generally part of the
These
warrant.
are warrant articles.
Yeah.
So if these are warrant articles, we probably vote on it at that time.
Yeah, where we vote for or against these things is when we do the motions and explanations. That's where our approval process takes place when it comes to that, so it'll be part of the motions.
Okay.
So that's how, that's kind of always kind of been happening.
Okay.
It's happened. It's good to see it in advance, because we're not, when we're going through motions and explanations, we kind of know it. It's nice to know it's coming. So, but yeah, that's kind of how that works. And the
Okay.
select board.
Yeah, no problem.
The way it kind of works is the select board says, okay, we need to go get this thing. And then it can go into the articles, and once in the articles, then it comes to us.
Right, okay.
It's kind of a whole roll-up thing. That's how it's always been. If someday someone wants to change it, they are more than welcome to, as far as I'm concerned. All right, is there anything further to come before the Finance Committee?
Did you wanna have that meeting?
Yes, those are glaring
The
eyes.
6th? And Eric, the conversation, Eric, you wanted to get an opinion from the Finance Committee about the policies and procedures and so forth. You want to get a feeling about that meeting of the different committees to decide on the long-term approach and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I will say that in my experience, generally, the Board of Finance has the responsibility to come up with the overall arching fiscal policies for the town. That includes level of budget debt you want, level of capital expenditure, you think is included, in the general policies on how money is spent and allocated and what the procedures are. If there's something that's a capital request, who does it go to initially? Once the CIP says yes or no, does it go to the Board of Finance next, or does it go to the Board of Selectmen next? How is that procedure? So those are, in my experience, those are pretty much always, FinCom responsibility. And then once those are in place, my responsibility as the town manager is to develop all the individual policies for, departments, how departments function, who does what, and what our internal policies are as a finance department. So that's my take on it. But it doesn't, I'm not sure that's something the FinCom wants to actually take on, because it's something we're definitely lacking. We definitely need pretty clear.
Mark, you're referring to that sets this, you mean actual hard policies in what is referred to often in other communities as a financial policies and procedures manual.
Correct.
Correct.
I mean, I'm used to having a set of policies and procedures which essentially define the upper bounds of what I can ask for and what my authority is related to finance. And that I don't really seem to have here. And I'm happy to go wild and not have one too. I mean, it's easier on me, but it's probably smarter for you as a board to work out those limits originally and then leave it to me to develop the internal policies for how the finance department operates, because we really don't have those either, and we really ought to have documented management control policies and financial policies within the town. So that's what I'm kind of suggesting.
You're suggesting that we define what the numbers are and then the actual policy itself gets written by others. Is that fair to extract out of your last comment?
No, I mean, I think the FinCom should be writing the overall policies in terms of the overarching policies for the town. Defining how capital projects are handled, that kind of thing. What the workflow is. But then internal policies, like what policies the town has in place for fraud control, for instance, that's a me thing, that's a management thing. And what the town's policy is on investing money, like all the money that's in the stabilization funds. We should have a policy in place that says, what are the town's goals and limitations on what we, how we invest in, do we invest, what categories of things do we invest in? A lot of that's guided by mass law, but there's some flexibility, so we should understand that.
That would be probably the treasurer that would put that policy together.
Yeah, I mean, we should have a policy for when and how the reconciliation between the collector's office, the treasurer's office, and the accounting office is. We should have a policy in place for when our expectations are for all the various reporting that we're required to do with the state, what our timelines are and how we expect that to happen. There's just a lot of that, like, basic policy on how operating manual on what we do.
So basically, the 21 policies that are enumerated in either the PLS or the Collins Center versions of a standard policies and procedures manual.
Right, but what I'm saying is the overarching stuff is the Board of Finance, and the nuts and bolts of how a finance office operates is us. But I don't think the finance office shouldn't be determining, nor should I, how much debt the town should be willing to take on as a percentage of its general budget. That should be a FinCom decision.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Well,
That's-
the good news is that the Collins Center would be willing to help us. And I'm gonna guess at the number, and if my memory serves me correctly, it's roughly $40,000, which can be paid for by a compact grant. And there are 4 policies that I mentioned earlier this evening that we have to have written in a time period where the compact grant and the Collins Center can't rescue us. But I think I can pull together. And there are 10 policies that would really fall under the purview of the Finance Committee. So I think that I'd be able to finish off 5. That would get us the money and the time necessary to get our capital planning committee work done as it should be done, and allow us to be able to put a compact grant together that will not only fund the capital planning committee stuff, but also fund the remaining 15 policy or 16 policies that are necessary to complete our capital planning module. So I would propose to the committee that we look to that as a process to help us get around this trouble. The only reason that we did not go that route earlier is because the town had 2 outstanding compact grants that prevented us from acquiring that money last year. Otherwise, we would have already had that in place. And the reason we went with DLS is previously DLS had a service like the Collins Center, helping people put together a policies and procedure manual, and did it for free. They actually came out and held your hand and all that. This year we've learned the hard way that they just have a couple quick meetings, pat you on the butt, out the door you go, and good luck. So it's not really viable now. So I throw that out there. I think it's a decent approach, and if everybody else is comfortable with it, we can potentially, I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you're comfortable having that motioned, and follow that kind of approach. Your comments, please.
Well, considering that DLS has provided us with some templates of financial policies for towns, my hope was that when I first proposed this, actually 2 years ago now, was that the goal was to at least be able to provide the Finance Committee with some level of guidance through this whole process. Because this kind of winging it thing and being told that we're not allowed to make adjustments to budgets, and we're not allowed to look at certain amounts of money, primarily ARPA. As I've discovered, ARPA funds were supposed to come before the Finance Committee. Too late now, the horse has left the barn. But after learning these things, that's when the urgency came about for policies of some kind. That people can go to a document, look at the document and say, yes, we should be doing this, no, we should not be doing that. And however deep we have to get into the weeds, I suppose, is what we have to do. In order to get a grant, it sounds to me like to get this grant, the policies that are needed for that are actually more policies that fit what Eric does. That's what it sounds like. At least that's kind of what this looks like. This capital budget policies and procedures, that seems more tuned into some rather specific things. And like you said, the overarching things, like what percentage of money are we going to put in each year for capital stabilization, and or things of that nature would be very appropriate for the Finance Committee. But when we talk about investments like OPEB, for instance, the Finance Committee didn't make a decision. As far as I know, we didn't decide, okay, all of a sudden we're going to just start paying into OPEB and how much. It was handed to us, agreed to by the Select Board, and handed to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee just moved through it. That's kind of how it went. So The vision was just to simply be able to give the people of the finance committee, primarily the chair, the ability to say, this is how we need to run. This is how the finance committee needs to operate. This is what the finance committee stands for. This is how we get things done. And the thought process being there too is this other part, the more localized and smaller pieces would fall to the town manager, and if we had to collaborate with the chair of the finance committee and the chair and vice chair of the finance committee, chair and vice chair of the select board, if we needed to get to that level to make further decisions that are on a less arching fashion, well then that's working collaboratively in the best interest of the town. So I'm not quite sure where this whole thing is suddenly deciding to go. I'm a little perplexed, but we need to move forward with it regardless at this point. So we'll work on trying to get some guidelines in as to where it needs to go, and hopefully the subcommittee can work with those guidelines.
What is
So-
your feeling about incorporating the Collins Center through a compact grant?
Well, the Collins Center is also, of course, the Collins Center is going to help us. So the Collins Center is going to save us from ourselves, is what's going to ultimately happen.
So you're supportive of getting involved in?
Well, the Collins Center, hopefully, we'll be able to utilize the Collins Center to actually do the writing of the policies. That's probably going to be, and we'll look at the verbiage and does it fit what we want, and that's kind of what the Collins Center will end up doing. The Collins Center, DLS used to do that. I don't know if they're doing it anymore or not. DLS used to do that. And,
Not anymore?
And they apparently are not. So either they had budget cuts or what, but the last time I talked to DLS, which was years ago, they were all about it. They were all about helping out the towns and doing everything they can for the towns. But apparently they're not. So Collins Center is great. Honestly, I really like dealing with the Collins Center the few times I've dealt with them. So
Are we comfortable with moving forward with creating the compact grants to finish off the policy? Is the select board in support, or the finance committee in support of that?
well, that's kind of up to the finance committee. It's just needs to be kind of laid out. Is how are we gonna word the motion? How are we gonna make this thing work? I want to make, but the thing with me right now is I want to make sure that our policy committee is headed in a positive direction. And I would like to see this committee, and I think the next time we have a meeting, I'm going to sit in and hear what everyone has to say so that we can all kind of figure this thing out. It's important for us to be able to get this thing done. It's extremely important to get this thing done because it'll move our capital planning committee further, commission or committee, move them forward, and it'll get the town headed in a good direction. That's the hardest thing right now is to get us headed in a good direction for all of the things we have, and that includes, like you said, Eric, earlier. You said we have investments that the town has. It isn't just finances aren't just. It's not just this budget. It's not the only thing that we do. We had a very good experience recently. Eric brought a contract before us. We reviewed the contract. We found out, we saw some things that weren't quite the way we thought they should be. We put them in Eric's court. He ran with it, and we ended up with a much better contract in the end. So it worked out well for us to do that, and we hopefully will be able to do more of that. But we need to have policies, basically saying, okay, kind of an example of that is a finance committee policy that contracts of a certain amount come to the finance committee. Discussion ends at that point. So I guess it's a mix of all of it is what it is. But getting into us saying you have to move money here or move money there or move money to the next place, That's not something I can't imagine the finance committee would want to get involved in that. I certainly don't have enough experience, and I think there's only, from what I can tell, there's only one person, and I don't know some of these people, but I know there is one person in this room that has the ability to know exactly what you're doing and how it's done, and that's that lady right over there.
You think so?
You are quite familiar with how all of those things work, and that's been a blessing for us. I don't know what your professional backgrounds are, and I know I've got a rough idea how Tom's is and such, but when it comes down to that, it's kind of outside the purview of the finance committee to be. I don't know if I want to call it setting policy or not. It's just kind of giving you guidelines for our financial planning for the future. I guess that is a policy, I suppose.
I mean, in absence of you doing it, I'll do what I think is in the best interest of Dalton. That's my job as a town manager, but I'm used to working under some level of constraint, you know,
Yeah.
in the form of written policies that I
exactly,
have to.
and that's exactly what I'm talking about, is coming up with guardrails.
Yes.
That's what we're trying to. That's what we need to build. We need to build guardrails. This is how the finances of the town of Dalton work. And as for one person taking a piece of information and putting it in another person's hand, and from that person to another person's hand, and so on and so on and so on, that's his problem. Our problem is to make sure that they have the ability to go and do that. So in other words, we put this budget together. This budget was put together. The select board went in and they were great. They were able to look at this budget booklet and they were able to make a decision, and they were able to TA the whole budget all in one move because they were able to see the whole thing all at once. And we take it apart, we dissect it. That's what our job is. So we want to make sure that we're staying within those guardrails. And that's a good example of Eric would then know, okay, on a certain date, we need the booklet made. That's a policy. And those are all of the things that we need to, by a certain date, we need to have certain things done so that we can be prepared for the beginning of the budget season and be able to just come in here instead of coming in here at the 11th hour and having confetti flying over the tables. And I think if the finance committee and that's what I wanted, that's what I want out of the policies is the chair. That's what I'd like to see is being able to produce a document that produces organization and an overarching, as Eric put it, guide as to how we do this.
Well, that's
We really don't have that.
one of the things that we talked about yesterday when our little group met, was the fact that people join the finance committee and they're like a deer with headlights
Absolutely.
coming at them. They don't understand how exactly it works or what they're supposed to do or what the guidelines are. So that's what we're starting to put together.
Yes, and that's exactly what we should be putting
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And these other 4 parts to that is,
Yeah.
I kind of looked at it as the part that I want us to kind of focus on is the roots and the trunk of the tree. And the parts that you're working on, these parts here, are the leaves. These are what's going to make it grow. And it's going to make it better. So it all has to work together. So it doesn't, what time we do it, if it's outside of our expertise, we'll lean on Eric for anything. Eric and our town accountant and our town treasurer and our collector and assessor. Those are the professionals that we'll lean on to get the information that we need. Does that sound relatively accurate?
Yeah, relatively. I mean,
We're all going to be of differing opinions, without a doubt. But I just want to make sure that we as a finance committee, are able to give guidance to new people. We're able to give guidance to our financial team that work for us. Those are the things that we need to kind of think about doing. But as for making some rather deep decisions. I don't know if that's really, we're, I guess the best way that I look at it is that the finance committee is a check. As we have in government, we have checks and balances. And we want to be a check on how the system is working. We want to look at the system and say, okay, what's the problem? Let's get it straightened out. And hopefully we can get it straightened out with a set of policies that work really well. Right now, we're kind of in the infancy stage, in
Yes,
my
we
opinion.
are.
We're all going to learn.
Yeah, and
This thing is a baby. It's still got diapers on.
yeah, and I'm not coming in and saying, by June 15th, I expect a full set of, policies and procedures for operations from the Board of Finance. I'm just saying
It needs to be done.
it needs to be done
And let's
at
make
some
progress.
point. Let's be making forward progress.
Absolutely.
And the time for you guys to do it really is once budget season is over and before the next budget season starts. That's your window to accomplish things of that nature. If it helps, I'm sure Tom and I could come up with a list of all the policies collectively that we should really have, and then maybe identify the ones that we think are really my prerogative and that I should be working on, all the internal ones, and then what ones are really should come out of the finance committee and what ones should be related to the capital planning committee. Because I think the capital planning committee is really empowered to figure out what policies it needs to function.
That's correct. And that's the thing is, the capital plan, the hard part here is juggling act is the wrong thing. It's a balance. The capital planning committee should not be, they should be providing information to both the select board and the finance committee as to this is what our capital outlook is. This is what we have. This is how we need, and then we can look at, okay, how do we make it work? How do we tell the townspeople because we're all elected? How do we tell the townspeople this is what we need to do to accomplish this? And that's kind of what the finance committee has to do. We have to guide the towns. We have to try and guide the townspeople in a direction that A, they don't choke on their tax bill, and B, they end up in a really nice town to live in. And that's what we're kind of charged with when you take your oath of office. So that's it, and that's where we're at. It looks like we're going in that direction. So it's going to be a little weird and a little ugly for a little bit, but I think once we all get focused and headed in the right direction, we'll be good. All right. Okay. Is there anything further to come before the committee tonight? Seeing or hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Tom's abstaining. Thank you.